now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to you by my book. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to the show. Just go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Actually, go to amazon.com. It's easier. Just search Tom Molyneux or even my name, Bill Calogero, and it'll pop right up. If you need a signed copy, just drop me an email, bill@billycboxing.com or billy@talkinboxing.com. That's TALKINBOXING.com. Once again, we are doing the show a little off schedule. We're a day early and 1 day and 1 hour early due to some scheduling conflicts. So hopefully you'll catch this show live because we want you to be part of the chat room. And my man Jason's already, Jesus is already in there. So we'll get you involved with that in a little bit. And if you're watching the delay, I apologize. Hopefully next week we'll be back regular time. All right. Today's show, the PBC is a sinking ship. It's the Titanic of boxing, if you will. I'll get into that in a minute or two, or maybe five. First and foremost, I wanted to, Jesus, happy Wednesday to you. His other comment I'm going to hold off on because it's actually the premise of my show. But first and foremost, let's get some fight results to you from Saturday on ESPN Plus. Takuma Inoue fought Jerwin Anacahas, and Inoue won the fight. He stopped Anacahas with a vicious body shot. I don't know if you saw it. It was a one-punch knockout. 44 seconds of the ninth round. Inoue improved to 19-1 with 5 knockouts. Beautiful body shot. If you didn't see it, get ESPN Plus and go watch it. Anacahas dropped to 34-4 in that one. Nakatani, he stopped Santiago in the 6th round, 1 minute and 12 seconds to be exact. Alejandro Santiago went down. He drops to 28 wins, 5 losses, 5 draws, 14 of his wins coming by knockout. And Junto Nakatani improved to 27-0 with 20 knockouts. Again, 1 minute, 12 seconds of the 6th round. Also, a fight that was on the Zone. All right, this was a lot of talk. I broke the fight down. I was looking forward to this fight. And the chosen one, Edgar Berlanga, he fought and won, knocked out Padraig McCrory at 2 minutes and 44 seconds of the 6th round to improve to 22-0 with 17 knockouts. McCrory drops to 18-1 with 9 knockouts. I got to be honest. I wasn't impressed with Berlanga. I'm sorry, I wasn't. I believe he has no chance against Mugaya. I think he has no chance against Benavidez, and I think he definitely doesn't have a chance against Canelo. He needs more work. I know everybody's talking about it, including myself. I thought that maybe he deserved to he's a dirty fighter too. I mean, in this fight, that elbow really pissed me off. I mean, it was a blatant elbow. He landed a couple of headbutts. To me, they didn't look accidental, and low blows. They were all on display. against McCrory. He did stop him, but I think he needs more work for sure. Also, the 2020 Olympic gold medalist Andy Cruz improved to 3-0 with a knockout when he dominated Brian Zamaripa, who drops to 14-3. It was a 10-round fight for the one of these belts. I don't know, but that was an exciting fight. And also an elimination fight. Shakiram Glaziov took a technical decision over Pablo Cesar Cano. The only reason why I mention this is Pablo Cesar Cano, at one point, I mean, this guy was an exciting fighter. I think his best days are over. And there was a flyweight fight. Another Olympian, Yaquiel Rivera, improved to 5-0 with 2 knockouts when he fought a 10-round decision over Andy Dominguez, who drops his first fight 10-1 now, with 5 of his wins coming by knockout. And speaking of flyweights, on DAZN, again, I watched a fight that I absolutely loved. It was a thrilling fight on DAZN in the flyweight division, and it featured Connor Butler going against Jay Harris. Connor Butler was a local kid, a lot of fanfare. The promoter of the event was looking forward to having Connor Butler bust onto the scene and maybe take a step up. It was a kind of a unification title, if you will. The Commonwealth and European flyweight titles were in the hands of Butler, and the British title was in the hands of Jay Harris. Well, if you missed this fight, you missed a great one. I mean, what a tough fight to score. I mean, but at the end, the guy who I thought won, and that was Jay Harris, and he improves to his record now is 21-3 with 11 knockouts. Butler lost for the first time in his career, dropping to 11 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. There was a bantamweight prospect on this card too, Jack Turner. He improved to 5-0. All of his wins by first-round knockout, and he stopped Selemani Benghazi in the first round. Benghazi drops to 19-10. A good test for this kid, but I mean, the truth of the matter is he hasn't gotten out of the first round. I mean, we don't know if he's got the wind or whatever, but hats off to him. What devastating power at that weight in the bantamweight. My thoughts on this card. The main event was great, but the rest of the card all seemed to be mismatches inside the ring. On paper, they all look good. It was broadcast on DAZN. And normally I'm a big fan of DAZN, and I still am. But this was one of the first fight cards, I should say, where they were mostly mismatches, except for the main event. The other thing I want to mention is that there was a female commentator. I don't know her name. She was one of the worst I've ever heard. I mean, this chick, all she did was yell and scream, and she never shut the fuck up. I mean, she was just I wish I could have reached through the TV and slapped her. I mean, the late great Nick Charles said it best. He called the action as it was happening in front of him. I mean, if you're watching it and you need to hear all this babbling bullshit going on and on and on and on, I want to watch the fight. I mean, I want to hear some intelligent commentary, talking about what's going on in front of you in the ring. And she just kept, she didn't shut up for the whole fight. It really ruined it. But the one other thing I noticed about this card, which I enjoyed, and again, this is why I feel that the UK is so far ahead of the United States in boxing. This was a local card, right? It was a local show in Liverpool. And the amount of young kids that were there, and I'm not saying babies. I'm saying, probably 8 years old to teenagers and stuff. They were all over the place cheering on the local fighters. And, this is what the difference is. You very rarely see that on American cards. You very rarely see it. And the truth of the matter is this is why they have such knowledgeable boxing fans. They're following the sport at a young age. And they also have a pretty big pool of fighters because a lot of these young kids want to emulate the guys that they're cheering for. So I really thought that was a good thing. So, all right, let's get to my thoughts here on the PBC. Okay, I mean the PBC is a sinking ship. All right, and I just want to remind everybody, by the way, here's a plug. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page, our Rumble page, and of course, subscribe to our podcast. We need the likes. We want you to forward it, send it to your friends. I mean, do all of that stuff. I want to make for all these years we had been on TV, radio, and podcasts. We're trying to get a better presence on social media. So help us out there. Yes, Jesus says the Japanese cards are suspicious. It seems fights are all one-sided. I don't know, but they're entertaining. I mean, what do you expect if, like, Santiago went to Japan? It's like when foreign fighters come to the U.S. I mean, you're going to the home turf. You got to perform well. So this is what got me cooking on the PBC. All right, this past weekend on social media, and like I said, I've been trying to be a little more vocal on social media. Someone blasted me because I saw this post that said that the PBC had offered Canelo $50 million to fight Benavidez, or maybe it wasn't Benavidez, but whatever. And I made a comment and I said, does the PBC actually have the money? And the next day, that was on over the weekend. On Monday, it was reported that the PBC and Canelo have parted ways because they couldn't come up with a $35 million purse for the Canelo, right? So I'm like, oh, geez, So I started thinking, about the PBC and why it's sinking and why I think it's bad for the sport of boxing, and I always did. All right, if you remember, well, first of all, if you go to the PBC website, which obviously Premier Boxing Champions, if you didn't know that, if you go to their website, when you go under about the Premier Boxing Champion Series, this is what it says. It says Premier Boxing Champions was created for television by Heyman Sports in January of 2015. PBC is a boxing series that returns the sweet science to its rightful place atop the sports, top of sports, they're saying, and featuring today's best and brightest stars in their toughest, most anticipated bouts. Premier Boxing Championships broadcast and streamed on Prime Video. Make a note of that. PBC takes boxing back to its roots. This is pure boxing, pure and simple, where what's brought to the fight mentally and physically is what determines who goes home the winner and who just goes home. Now, remember that. They're saying the most anticipated fight, the best fighters, blah, 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 right? Wrong. Let's go back. By the end of 2014, we were only watching boxing on, cable networks and pay-per-views, all right? And it started hurting. Then it even got to the point when streaming started taking place. You had to pay for streaming. It even streaming platforms started saying, "Oh, well, maybe we'll only charge $9.99 and blah blah blah." The views were terrible. Trust me. We were doing streaming. We did them for free. We got a lot of viewers, and we were checking out a lot of the views from the pay-per-view streams, and they were getting nothing. So here's the thing. Don't, Jason, don't ever compare me to who you just did. All right. The guy's a clown, in my opinion. But in any event, here's the thing. Let's follow the videotape. And maybe he says the same thing. But here's the thing. I'm just going to break it down. All right. Al Heyman started the PBC in 2015. And honestly, every time you turned around, they were on TV. They were on every single network. All right. And it was for free. NBC, CBS, ESPN, NBC, Sports Network, Spike TV, remember? Bounce TV, Fox, FS1. I'm probably missing a few more. They were all over the place. All right. That was in 2015. Everybody loved it. The fans loved it. In fact, the PBC was giving us what we all longed for. which was boxing on TV for free, right? Al Heyman, who in my opinion is more like Satan than anyone else, was promising the fighters big money, and they were making it. In a sense, he ruined the normal value of what the fighters were getting. Of course, the fighters wanted to be part of the PBC because why not? If they could make more money, why wouldn't they? Right? I mean, I don't knock a fighter for making the most money that he could with the least amount of risk. When it comes to the pocketbook, that's if I take my boxing purist hat off. It sounds familiar, like somebody I mention all the time. Well, Al Heyman was and still is the best con man in sports today. The guy was able to con over $500 million. If you recall, we were referring to it as his war chest from investors in order to put on these shows. And of course, pay these fighters the exaggerated pricing, the exaggerated purses. He pissed through that money so fast it wasn't funny. And he was hoping it was going to be replaced by advertising dollars because he thought he was going to gain the viewership by giving the fights for free. And I guess it sounds good, but by 2017, the investors' money was totally gone, and by 2020, so were all the talented fighters. They had jumped on board and they jumped right off. All right. They successfully conned the boxing fans into thinking fighters like the Charlo brothers, Keith Thurman and Adrian Broner were actually quality fighters. And as of today, I doubt any boxing fan who knows the sport that they know that it's just not true. The Charlo brothers are frauds. Broner's become a drunk, and Thurman, well, we all know him. In my opinion, he's probably one of the most overrated fighters of recent memory. The purses that the PBC fighters make today are well below what the other promoters make, like Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, Golden Boy, Top Rank, etc. The PBC single-handedly ruined Showtime boxing. We don't even see that anymore. And recently, the PBC seems to have popped out from under the rocks that they were hiding under. And the con man, Al Heyman, managed to con Amazon Prime, who incidentally wanted to be in live sports, especially boxing. So he got the deal. The jury's still out on that, whether it works. But I'll tell you what is, you have to pay for it. They're all pay-per-view now. Everything that the PBC has done recently is pay-per-view or by subscription. All the fans that thought the PBC was boxing's savior and putting boxing on TV for free, it's all gone. There's no more. We haven't seen it. Okay. A lot of them are realizing, except, Jason's, you're missing my point. I just said, if you were listening to the whole thing, you would have heard me say that it was great that free boxing on free TV, but it's not doing that. He bamboozled us. All right. He fleeced the boxing fan because there is no boxing on TV for free anymore. All right. Yeah, I do. I think the Zone and ESPN Plus are good, specifically the Zone. I think it's worth every nickel that you pay. It is to me. All right. Because they have quality fighters and the PBC does not. Okay. They're still trying to question boxing fans' intelligence. Here's the bottom line of why I think the PBC is sinking. I got 3 issues. Okay. Three points. Number one, the fighters aren't getting paid as much. So now the fighters are flocking to the other promotion companies that will open up their checkbooks wider than the PBC can afford. That's the PBC's own fault for inflating the purse structure to begin with. The end results are that the frauds that they have now, a la the Charlo brothers, etc., and the integrity of those fighters, because almost all of them end up in the news for what seems to be all negative things. How many times have we seen these guys in the news? The second thing, they've lost all major investors and advertisers. Al Heyman never once has reached in from the deals he makes with the networks and the streaming companies. And finally, you guys, the fans, right? He's feeding his fighters. Thank God he's finally feeding his fighters to other promoters, because if you recall, they rarely did that. And I think the biggest reason that they're failing right now is they fleeced the boxing fans and pulled the smokescreen with the free boxing on TV, with the exaggerated purses and everything that I'm talking about. They never really built the value in the PBC that boxing needs to have in longevity. They didn't invest in the younger fighters. And when they did, like the Charlo brothers, because they took them on early, they never let them develop correctly because they had the O. They believed and conned the fans into thinking that if a fighter had an O, that equaled a quality fighter. Well, we all know that that's not true. The other thing is that the PBC tried to emulate the success of Dana White and the UFC. If you think about it, the PBC, the reason why they didn't want to work with other promoters is because they were trying to form their own league. They, at one point, they even were going to come out with their own title and everything else. It started to fail. It didn't work. Now they're starting to let their fighters fight on other cards because they can't afford to pay these guys. All right. All the promoters would love to have a league like the UFC. Okay. All the promoters would love it. But the problem and the big difference between the UFC's success and boxing is that boxing's been around so long, and it's the sanctioning bodies that have their claws in it as well. So there's multiple fronts you have to battle in order to do it. The only way to be successful as a promoter in boxing today is to be willing to let your fighters fight other promoters' fighters and let your fighters fight on their networks or streaming services, etc. They need to be able to play nice together in order for it to work. That's why back in the day, guys like Don King and Bob Arum buried the hatchet to put on the fights. You think they liked each other? They really don't. They like each other now because they're 190 years old each. But back then, they didn't. But they came to terms when it was important, when they had a fight to be made, because after all, everybody wants to make the money. The bottom line is the PBC, could have been in a better position today if they weren't so greedy. And, I don't think they're going to last much longer, but we'll see. And incidentally, when that all was happening, I actually came up with a system that I thought would work. All right. I thought that, but it would have to involve the sanctioning bodies. And if they were set up sort of as divisions, if you think of the way football is set up, if you had the four major sanctioning bodies set up as divisions, and if any promoter could be involved, you could have a league set up. And then you got the, secondary titles, sanctioning bodies like the IBO, the WBF, and then the regional titles like the NABF and NABO. They could be like, a proving ground. So, yes, the PBC is a sinking ship, 100%. Okay, so I'm going to respond to all of Jason. Apparently, he's a PBC boy. The Zone never did promise anything. They promised a subscription, and you paid for those fights. Now they own the sport of boxing, in my opinion. I could tune into the Zone and watch fights on a Saturday afternoon starting at 2:00 and watch them, all different shows that they have. I'm loving it. Yes, they have the big fights. You do have to pay the pay-per-view. But you know what? They have quality fights. They have different promoters involved. It's fun to watch. They're not all, you don't know who's going to win all those fights. I'm sorry. I like the Zone. I'm not that crazy about ESPN Plus. So I agree with him there. So I mean, it is what it is. And you can't say that they promised free boxing, Jason, because you always had to subscribe to the Zone. They never said the Zone was free, ever. Okay. The PBC did, because they cut deals with the networks that put the fights on, and we got to watch it for free, end of story, So anyway, that's my thoughts on the PBC. They still haven't announced who Canelo is fighting. There's been a lot of talk. Oscar De La Hoya is saying that he thinks maybe Mugai is going to be the guy, and all this stuff. But I saw a couple of things And what interested me was on the 23rd of this month, you had Terrence Crawford. He started his training camp, and Canelo started it on the same day. I don't know what that means, but it is what it is. And, I hope that they fight. I doubt it. I do think that Canelo is kind of looking for an easier fight, although a lot of people seem to believe, um, you know, um, that he's not going to fight Crawford. But any event, um, the I saw this. I tell you what, I did see this on social media on the 24th. It said. And I looked around. I tried to get confirmation on this, and I couldn't get it from every connection I have. I couldn't get it, but it was posted on social media. It said from Terrence Crawford, supposedly. The title was Terrence Crawford accepts Canelo's terms to fight at 168. This was a day. This was the day after they started training camp, and according to this post, Crawford said, and I quote, "Canelo, let's do it. I've always said, man, that's a big step. But for a person to go up 3 weight classes from 147 to 168 and to win and become undisputed, wow, what can they say? They can't say nothing right now, but what can they say? 3-time undisputed champion and the smaller fighter that went up 3 weight divisions to conquer one of the baddest men that's been doing it for probably longer than me. I believe in me. I believe in my skills. We will win. I'm on board, Canelo. Let's do it." I'm not sure that that fight's going to materialize, but nonetheless, there's going to be a fight on Saturday on ESPN, a couple of good title fights. I'm going to be ringside for that. So if you're going to be up at the Turning Stone in Verona, New York, come by and say hello, and we could talk. And I'll mention that I saw you on air. Otabek Kalamotov against Raymond Ford for the WBA featherweight title, and Luis Alberto Lopez against Ryla Abe for the IBF featherweight title. 2 great 50-50 fights on that card. I'm really looking forward to it. But I tell you, another fighter that I'm going to be looking at on that card is in the junior welterweight division. His name is Bryce Mills. He's 14-1 with 5 knockouts. He's kind of a local kid up in the Western New York area. And we're going to have him on the show. So I'm going to be watching that fight very closely. Ed, Jason thinks he's going to fight Berlanga. I got news for you. If they let Berlanga fight Canelo, that just shows you that Canelo's taking an easy way out, because Berlanga did not impress me at all. And speaking of Berlanga, I think that this is the fight for Berlanga. He should be fighting David Morrell Jr., all right? And David Morrell Jr. came out and said, and by the way, he's the regular WBA champ, super middleweight champ. He's 10-0 with 9 knockouts. He says, Berlanga sucks. And he said, and I quote, this is Morrell. He says, Berlanga is simply not on my level. I've watched his fights. I see nothing that worries me. Berlanga sucks, and I'll destroy him. If we ever step into the ring together, I'll knock him out in 1 round, guaranteed. I don't know about that. He says, I'm here to prove that I'm the best. Whether it's Berlanga or anybody else, I'm ready to step into the ring and show the world what I'm made of. I'm the best fighter in the super middleweight division, and soon everybody's going to know that. Well, I enjoy the fact that he's calling him out. But when you take a look at this fight, my thoughts of Berlanga aren't that good. I mean, I'm not thinking that Berlanga is that great of a fighter. He didn't impress me the other night. That's for sure. And when you look at Berlanga, he is the computer ranks him at number 9. David Morrell, number 8, which is interesting. He's not ranked by the other sanctioning bodies because he's the WBA regular champion, which is total bullshit. But as you know, Berlanga. He's probably going to be moving up in the rankings after his knockout win last week. But before the fight, he was ranked in all 4 of the sanctioning bodies: number 5 in the WBO, number 6 in the IBF, number 8 in the WBA, and number 10 in the WBC. I'd like to see that fight. I think that's a good fight to see. I think it's an even fight. They're both 26 years old. They're both 6'1". You got an orthodox fighter against a southpaw. I like the fight. That's what boxing should be about. We should be watching these guys climb the ladder. That's the end of as far as I'm concerned. That's the end of the story. I'm with my man Eric Killen. Glad to see you here, Eric. He likes the Mugaya fight. You mean Canelo and Mugaya? I love that fight. I don't think that Canelo wants to fight a guy like Mugaya or David Benavidez. Benavidez, I'm sorry. I don't think he wants Benavidez at all. Benavidez is too big. And speaking of Benavidez, he's moving up to 175. He's fighting Alexander Godzik in June. So we'll see about that one. Some other news I'll mention is Gervonta Davis, Tank, is fighting Frank Martin. Does anybody care about this fight? I mean, everybody wanted to see Tank Davis. He's regarded as one of the best fighters. I love watching him fight when he's on. He's exciting. I don't like him outside the ring. He's that PBC in trouble all the time. But I want to see him fight somebody. I don't want to discredit Martin, but come on. This is again, taking the easy way out. Look, you put your hat on for the fighter, and I say, good for you. Make as much money as you can. I honestly feel that. Okay. And I've said it about Floyd. People know that I'm not a big Floyd fan. I'm not a fan at all, but I do give him credit for making the money that he did and the way he did, but what irks me about him is he says he's the best. Well, you can't be the best unless you fight the best, and just because you have an O doesn't mean, I'm seeing posts that this cat, and then there's people that believe it, that he's better than Sugar Ray Robinson. That just kills me. That kills me. I can't stand hearing that. Chocolatito Gonzalez is moving to bantamweight. Apparently he's going to be fighting soon. When he was asked about it, he says, well, nothing's concrete, but I will have a fight at 118 pounds. No opponent or date is set. He's 36 years old. What does this guy have left to prove? The sad thing about this is I think it's just a case of, I just think it's a case of the guy never making the money that he should have, Yeah, my man Eric he's calling it like it is. Charlo, they're not coming to fight. They come in to collect money. That's what the PBC does. Eric, you missed all of my points, and Jason apparently is a big PBC fan, so watch yourself there. I got a thing I wanted to ask you guys to do if you're into it. All right. Oh, by the way. I got a couple of emails. We were talking about the post that I saw about the top 50 fighters. And here it is. This was it. I'm going to leave it on the screen for a minute here. This was what I was talking about last week. I like this. This one is close to what I believe as being true. And you see who's at number 50, right? And the guys that are ahead of him, I'm not sure about Manny Pacquiao being number 3. All right. Sam Langford, Harry Greb should be on there, which he is at number 2. But, I like this list, top 50, and it's pretty realistic. Joe Gans maybe should be up there a little more. Jack Dempsey, all great fighters. I mean, you look at the names on this list, and it's pretty good. So hey, remember how I'm always talking? I saw this cartoon the other day, and I laughed my ass off because I say this all the time about uh you know rah-rah men, right? I say boxing needs more trainers and teachers, and instead we got rah-rah men. And I came across this. Check this out. You got a line of people, right? Uh, Pad holders, hype men, influencers. I call them the rah-rah men. There's a line a mile long. Real boxing teachers. Nobody's there. And if you didn't think anybody that does think Floyd Mayweather is number one. If you didn't think that Sugar Ray Robinson not only is one of the most talented fighters, he is the best boxer, in my opinion, ever laced on a pair of gloves, at least at this point. He was quite the character. This is a really cool picture of Sugar Ray Robinson in Harlem in front of his pink caddy. Now, this caddy was the same caddy that he took over to England with him when he fought. Interesting stuff. All right. Well, listen. Before we go, I wanted to. I have. All right. Let me make some comments here. We got Jesus says all of these title holders are going to overprice themselves. Therefore, fights will not happen. Are they going to overprice themselves? The thing is that they're all when you put your boxer hat on and you're trying to make a living and provide for your family, and let's face it, I mean, you're risking your life every time you step in the ring, and boxing is pretty hard. I mean, the training and dedication you got to put into it. So for them to get as much money for a fight, I don't knock them for that. What I knock them for is ducking the fights. It is what it is. I just believe that a fighter, if you want to be a fighter, yes, you should want to be doing it for the money, but you should also want to be doing it to gain the championship, even though we are diluted with titles today. What happens, Jesus, is the fact that you give a price. It's just like if you're trying to buy a car. If they want 30 grand for the car, and you got 28, and you offer them 28, and if they don't take it, go on and get another car. I've always said the best thing when you're negotiating, whether you're buying or selling, whether it's a fight or a car or a house, you always got to be willing to walk away. You want the best deal? Always be willing to walk away. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. All right. I've been thinking about a lot of stuff. All right. And one of the things I've been wanting to talk about on the show is mean fighters, right? Like the real mean fighters, fighters I've said, Terrence Crawford, he's got a mean streak, right? But there's been some fighters that are no doubt mean guys. I mean, this guy right here, Sonny Liston, one of the meanest guys ever to set foot in the ring. I mean, and speaking of Sonny Liston, we're going to have Paul Gallagher back on. If you missed that show, send me an email. I'll send you the link. But man, did he say some stuff on that show? I mean, bombshells about Sonny Liston, Ali, the death of Sonny Liston, all that stuff. As a matter of fact, I have his book right here that you got to read if you haven't. It's the real story behind Ali Liston, and Paul Gallagher's the author. If you need for me to help you get a copy or whatever, just drop me an email and I'll hook you up. But what a book. And we're getting Paul back on. He's working on another book right now. I can't talk about what it's about, but it's going to be another doozy. And we're going to have him on soon. Speaking of having on, next week, we're going to have John, the Iceman Scully on. We'll be talking about his light heavyweight, Artur Beterbiev. So we'll be talking about that. So make sure you tune in next week for that. But this is what I want you to do. Here's your homework assignment for the next week, okay? Who do you think was the top 10 mean fighters? in the sport of boxing. And I say mean, like Terrence Crawford had a mean streak, right? But here's 10 that come to my mind. I jotted down when I thought of this today. I jotted down 10 who I think are some of the meanest fighters ever to step foot in the ring. Now, you talk about Mike Tyson. He is on my list. He was mean, but then we learned that maybe not so much, right? But I'm talking about a mean fighter, that guy that had the switch. Crawford has the switch. He can flip that switch. He's cool, a family man, God-fearing guy outside the ring, sweet as pie, right? Gets inside the squared circle, and he flips that switch, and he's in kill mode, right? I don't want to offend anybody. He's in I'm going to knock you out mode, okay? But the 10 that came to mind in no particular order for me: Jack Dempsey, Sonny Liston, Mike Tyson, Vic Darchinyan. Remember him? Vic was a mean guy. Henry Armstrong, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Stanley Ketchel, Rocky Marciano, and Marvin Hagler. I mean, these were the top 10 guys that popped in to my head when I thought about, mean fighters that got in the ring mean. So why don't you put together a list, and you could put them in your order if you want, or you don't have to have any order, and email them to me, Bill at BillyCBoxing.com or Billy at Talkin' Boxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Hey, listen, thanks for joining us again. I'm sorry we did the show a day early, but some scheduling conflicts caused us to do that. Remember, do me a favor, subscribe to our YouTube page, subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our Rumble page. It's a new platform we're on now. And also give us a like and whatever else you do on social media, okay? All right, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, hopefully, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.